All right, everybody. As you can see, there's a box there that says Inside Pitch. Been gone for about a week and a half to 2 weeks, I think, between the last video. Just working and relaxing and kind of just taking a break. Finishing the Nationals project was a lot of fun. Definitely a long time coming. Wanted to get that done, and I did, but I don't think that project is complete without a wrap-up show. So this is the wrap-up show that I intended to do much earlier than today, but you know, life gets in the way sometimes. So we'll move this Inside Pitch box out of the way. I just put that there just so you'd have some Inside Pitch stuff to look at. And now let's look at the statistical comparisons from the real Washington National stats against the Inside Pitch National stats. We'll start with the batting, and kind of what I did, and I'll show the very first person is Juan Gomes. What I've done here, the way I've set it up, because trying to print it off the computer just didn't do all that well, the way the format was in Replay Baseball, which is what I was using to compile all the stats. So I just went to Excel, and I thought it'd be a whole lot easier to do it that way. There are two rows for each player. One has an A by it, which is the actual, or are the actual stats for that season. The other is the R, and the R row is, I don't know how well it shows up on the video, but it's in bold. So hopefully there's a slight distinction there. So the replay line is below the actual line. So if you look at Juan Gomes, in his actual season, he hit 223. In the replay, he hit 241. And I've also broken down what they did in real life versus lefties and righties, and what they did on the replay versus lefties and righties, just to see how Inside Pitch is checking the left-right splits while we're at it. Everything else from here on out is all the standard numbers compiled, not the splits, but the straight-up total numbers. So you see the lefty's pretty good, 263, 261, that's pretty good. His average went up because he hit better against righties, 234 versus the 212, which is why I gave him 14 more bats than I guess they gave him in real life. But you can see his doubles are pretty close. Home runs are pretty close. RBIs are pretty close. Didn't walk as much as I thought he might. He strikes out about the same. And, of course, the automated stealing, based on the strategy rolls, produced him with 1 steal on the season where he had 2 in real life. So, overall, for Juan Gomes, I didn't think it did all that bad. So let's see what it does the rest of the way, but that's just the format I'm using. So let's move on now to Ryan Zimmerman. And Zimmerman underperformed in this replay. He hit 257 in the actual season, only 235 in real life. What really hurt him is he only hit 222 against lefties in the replay, whereas he had 367 against left-handers in real life. So he didn't get a lot of those good rolls that you would think his card would have done. But just the way it works out. His doubles were down, home runs are down, RBIs about the same, walks fairly close, strikeouts fairly close. So not too bad, but he did kind of underperform there, and you're going to have that from time to time. Next up is Brian Dozier. He overperformed. He hit 265 on the replay, only 238 in real life. And what helped him on that, both versus lefties and righties, he improved against both. He had 60 points higher against lefties than he did righties in real life, and he did just about 60 points. Looks like it's like 59 points higher in the replay. So pretty much the same, which is why I gave him a lot more bats than he got in real life, which is why he has a little bit more doubles, has that 1 triple. Home run's a little bit short, RBI's about the same. He didn't walk nearly as much, which I think is why the at-bats are higher as well, because when you walk, of course, you don't have those at-bats charged against you. So he didn't walk quite enough, and he did strike out more than he did in real life. Stolen base, the strategy rolls, for whatever reason, didn't really come in his favor all that often. Only had 1 stolen base, none caught. So we move on now to Trey Turner. Turner underperformed a little bit as well. He hit 298 in real life, only 275 in the replay. And one of the reasons why he underperformed is against lefties. He only hit 250 in the replay, whereas in real life he hit 316. Versus righties is pretty much in line there, I guess. At bats, gave him 9 extra at bats, even though he underperformed. I gave him 9 extra at bats. Doubles are down. Home runs are exactly the same. I'm sorry, triples are exactly the same. Home runs a little bit higher, RBI a little bit higher, strikeouts definitely a little bit higher, 11, where walks are down, but his stolen base chances with the strategy rolls almost exact, 34-4 versus 35-5. I don't think you can ask for a whole lot more than that. So to me, this proves the strategy rolls in the game work out pretty well because he's the guy that's going to steal the most bases, has the most opportunities, and it reflected that, I think, very well. All right. Next is Anthony Rendon. He underperformed as well. Hit .319 in the actual season, only .295 in the replay, and that's because against right-handers, he struggled .288, whereas against right-handers in real life, he had .320. Lefties, he was pretty much right on the nose. Despite struggling, he had more at-bats, and that's because of the less walks again. He walked 21 times less, which is pretty much why he had 22 extra at-bats because of those low walks. Doubles are low. He didn't hit as many doubles as you thought he would have hit. Triples about the same. Home runs pretty much the same. RBI a little bit down, but that's based on the guys in front of him. Did strike out 18 times more than he did in real life, and he actually stole 5 more bases than he did in real life. So just the way the rolls go, but that's kind of how it went. Juan Soto, pretty much right on line, 282 in the actual season, 285 in real life. And differentials here, he hit much better against right-handers in the replay, but much worse against lefties in the replay. Kind of odd. Almost 40 more at-bats because, again, the walks are down. He walked 34 less times, so that's going to cause those at-bats to go up. Didn't hit nearly as many doubles as you thought he would. He only hit 22 versus the 32, but his triples are the same, and home runs a little bit up. RBI a little bit up. Strikeouts right on the line. And stolen base is pretty good. No stolen base, no caught stealings at all. 15-12 on stolen bases. Victor Robles struggled early in the season, but did make a comeback. And so on the actual season, he hit .255. On the replay, he hit .244, so not too bad. In the real season, he actually hit better against righties than against lefties, but in the replay, he hit much better against the lefties. Bats about the same. Doubles about the same, triples about the same, home runs are pretty close, RBI pretty close, walks are pretty close. Struck out 12 more times than he did in real life, 17-7 on the steals versus 28-9. So the automatic rolls or the strategy rolls just didn't seem to fit in quite as well for him as maybe somebody else, but all in all, not too bad. Let's go to Adam Eaton. He definitely underperformed, and he had some reverse splits. He hit better against lefties than he did righties in real life, and that was exacerbated even further in the game. He hit .302 versus .228. That's almost a 75-point swing there, whereas in real life it was only a 14-point swing. Did get more at-bats, same amount of doubles pretty much. Triples a little bit down, home runs a little bit down, but not too bad. RBIs were up. Walks were actually up. He actually walked more than he did in real life and struck out a lot more than he did in real life. Stolen bases, not too far off, 20-3 versus 15-3. But the strikeouts pretty much tell the story. There are a lot of strikeouts in this game for this team all the way through, and most guys struck out more in the replay than they did in real life. It's pretty much universal from what I'm seeing here. Everybody here has struck out more in the replay than they did in real life, except for Soto. It's the first one I've come across where he didn't. All right, let's go to Kendrick. Kendrick underperformed again. 302 in the replay, only 3, as opposed to 344 in real life. And what hurt him here is he struggled against righties. He only hit 276 against righties, where in the real life he hit 327. It's about a 50-point difference here in real life, lefty to righty. Here was about 70-point difference. Didn't get quite as many as his bats. His doubles were down, but his home runs were up. His RBI were definitely up. Walks about the same, strikeouts pretty much the same, and stolen bases pretty much the same. Go to Kurt Suzuki, the backup catcher or secondary catcher to Yan Gomes. 264 in the actual season, 258 in the replay. Not that far off. That's within the margin of error that's acceptable most times. In real life, he really clobbered lefties and struggled against righties, but in the replay, he actually did a little bit better against righties than he did lefties, so that's kind of an anomaly there. At bats about the same, doubles pretty much the same. He had the one triple here, which he didn't have there in real life. Home runs down by 4. RBIs a little bit down. Walks about the same. Again, strikeouts up and no stolen bases. Go to Matt Adams, Big City. hit 226 in the actual season, but hit 256 in the replay, and that's because he hit righties really well at 266. Lefties average real and replay almost identical, but he much better against the righties. 309 to 310 is right on the money. Doubles a little bit down. Home runs pretty much the same. RBIs is pretty good. Walks a little bit more, and strikeouts are actually down for him too. So that's one of the rare guys that actually had the strikeouts a little bit down. All right, let's look at Michael Taylor. He didn't get many at-bats, but I figured it's enough to check him out. 207 on the replay versus 250 in real life. So he's a little bit down, and that's because against righties he only hit a $137. So that really brought the average down, whereas he hit 306 against lefties in the replay. At-bats pretty much right on line. His doubles were down. RBI a little bit up. Walks a little bit higher. Strikeouts pretty much the same, and the stolen bases pretty much right in line. Wilmer Defoe, the last position player that I'm checking on this, hit 259 in the replay versus 252 in actuality. And he hit much better against lefties in real life than he did in replay, and a little bit better against righties than he did in the replay in real life. Bats about the same. Doubles, triples, home runs all in line. RBI in line, walks in line, strikeouts in line. So pretty much in line there for Defoe. So I was pretty happy with how the batting stats turned out. And for the season stats, the Nationals were 97 and 65 in the replay. They were 93 and 69 in real life, so +4. So after 162 games, I think only a 4-win differential is pretty good in my opinion. All right, now let's look at the fielding. Let's see how the fielding did. And I just picked about 8 or 9 players to check the fielding on. But we'll check the fielding and see how inside pitch did with fielding, because fielding is a very important part, to me anyway, of any baseball sim. Let's look at Yan Gomes. His same format's the same. The A means his real life is actual stuff, and R is the replay. I probably should have used R for real life and maybe something else for replay. I don't know, but the top line is actual. The bottom line is the replay, and you can see the percentage is the same. Putouts are pretty close. Didn't have as many of his assists as he did in real life. His errors are the same. He had many more double plays, which is kind of ironic since his assists were down, but that's the way it turned out. And then not as many pass balls. So he was able to avoid a lot of the pass ball checks from his pitchers. All right, let's go on to the next person in line, and that is the other catcher, Suzuki, which I just noticed I misspelled it and put an X there instead of a Z. Actual 996, in replay 998. His putouts about the same. Assists are a little bit down. It's kind of weird. His assists are down, but double plays are up. That's something just doesn't. I hope I didn't mistype that. I don't think I did, but trying to copy stats from the computer to this spreadsheet, it's possible, but I was trying to be pretty meticulous with it, so hopefully I didn't. So that's Suzuki. Let's look at Dozier, the second baseman. Had a little bit more trouble fielding in the replay they did in real life, with a 987 percentage versus 980, and that's based on 8 errors versus 5. His putouts are a little bit down. His assists are up, though, and double play is pretty much right on line. Go to the next fielder, and that is Trey Turner. And Turner had some error issues in the season. He only fielded 955 in the replay as opposed to 971 in real life. Putouts pretty much the same, assists a little bit up, so he got to more balls, but he committed 8 more errors and actually turned 5 less double plays. So that's just the way that worked out. Anthony Rendon, again, 960 for the replay, but 969 in real life, so he made a couple more errors than he did in the actual season. Despite his putouts being down, his assists are down, double play is about the same, but he made extra errors. And that's just some unfortunate D20 rolls on the fielding checks. Juan Soto, 993 fielding percentage in real life in the actual season, and in the replay 991. It's not too bad. A lot more putouts, so he had a lot more activity out his way, which created 4 assists, which he didn't have any in the actual season. His error is about the same, and the double plays are up because of the assist. Next up is Victor Robles, and his numbers are pretty much right on line. 984 in the replay versus 982 on the actual season. He did make a lot more putouts, fewer assists, but his errors and his double play is right on line. Next up is Adam Eaton, and he actually fielded better than he did in real life. 986 compared to 978. Few more putouts, assists are up, Errors are down, double plays about the same. Howie Kendrick, I did it for 2 positions for him because he played 2 different positions a lot for the Nationals, or enough to be counted. At first base, .997 for both. And as you can see here, his numbers are pretty much right on line, although his assists and his double plays are a little bit low. And then at second base, he didn't make any errors at second base. He made 1 in the actual season. So 1 error on such few chances are going to make that percentage seem a little bit off. But double plays are about, right on line. Putouts are right on line. Assist a little bit down on the replay, but not too bad. And then we got Zimmerman, who played first base. Again, he didn't make any errors, which was good for him. He made 3 on the real season. His putouts, assists, and double plays are all pretty much right in line, but just he avoided the error checks. He got some good rolls, I suppose, on the D20. Lastly, Matt Adams. He was fielded .991 on the actual season, but up to .998 on the replay. But again, his putouts right on line, his assists a little bit down, but his errors are way down, double plays right on the same. So that's how the game did in the fielding. Now, the last thing to check is the pitching. So let's look at how it did on the pitching. And for the pitchers, I didn't do any lefty-righty splits on the pitchers. It was just too much to worry about. I did it, however, for 4 of those pitchers that had extreme splits. I wanted to see how the game handled extreme splits pitching. So first of all, let's look at Max Scherzer. And again, on the actual season, he was 11-7 with a 2.92 ERA, whereas on the replay, it was 18-5 with a 2.35 ERA. Games, of course, starts were the same. Innings pitched, I pitched him a little bit more, but he gave up fewer hits, fewer home runs. His walks and strikeouts are pretty much right in line, so he's got some better run support the way it looks, and gave up fewer hits, but not bad at all. Strasburg. And he ran to tough luck. I mean, it's just, that's all you can say about it. The Nationals just did not score for him during this season. In the regular season, he was 18-6 with a 3.32 ERA. In the replay, he had a losing record, 10-11 with a lower ERA of 2.94. Innings pitched about the same, hits about the same, home runs a little bit up, not too bad. Walks about the same, and strikeouts are about the same. So all this was about run support. That's what the whole thing was about, was run support. All right, now let's look at the first lefty-righty split for Patrick Corbin. First, his regular numbers, combined numbers without the splits. He was 14-7, 3.25 in the actual season. In the replay, it was 15-7 with a 4.19. So he got good run support, obviously. Innings pitched a little bit lower, hits about the same, or are exactly the same. Home runs, relatively close. Walks a little bit higher. Strikeouts a little bit lower. Let's look at the lefty-righty splits on Corbin. In the actual season, lefties hit 190 against him, righties 235. In the replay, lefties hit 146 against him and 252 for righties. Home runs, he gave up 27. In the real life, 2 and 25, lefty and righty. Gave up 24. I'm sorry, that was in the replay. In real life, in actuality, actual season, he gave up 24, 2 and 22. So not bad on the split at all. And again, this did reflect the left-right split, which is, one of the concerns I think people might have about payoff pitches. Their pitchers don't have the split ratings, whereas inside pitch definitely reflect this. And I don't know how you can rate it otherwise and say it's mixed into the numbers. I'm not going to argue the fact, but it just logically doesn't resonate with me. But that's just me. And payoff pitch is a good game, so I'm not going to down it at all. I'm just saying that's one of the things people had, wished was formulated a little bit different in that game. But this is about inside pitch, so I want to belabor payoff pitch too much. Next pitcher is Anabol Sanchez. Anibal Sanchez, I should say. That's actually a typo. I don't know where the 85 came from because he pitched in 30 games. So that's a typo there. That should be 30. I don't know how that came about. But his innings pitched are about the same. Hits a little bit up. Home runs a little bit down. Walks about the same. Strikeouts about the same. Record 11-8 versus 9-8. 3.85, 3.99. I think that's all within the standard deviation, or whatever you want to call it, acceptable margin of error for statistics. I think it did pretty well. So it did pretty well for Anabol Sanchez. Next guy was Sean Doolittle, and I got his splits as well. So Sean Doolittle pitched in 63 games in the replay and in the actual season. Used him 3 less innings. He gave up 8 less hits and 5 less home runs. He did walk 3 extra and struck out 6 less. He was 6-5 with a 405 and 29 saves in the actual season. In the replay, it was 8-2 with a 316 and 30 saves. Split-wise, in real life, 221 versus 279, lefties and righties, whereas in the replay for my season, he really did well, much better against lefties, 197 against lefties as opposed to 221, whereas righties was pretty much right on line. 11 home runs, 2-9 was the split there. 6 home runs, 1-5. So that pretty well accurately described the splits on Doolittle, I thought. Next up is Wander Suero. And Suero is one of those guys that does much better against righties as a reliever. So I wanted to do his splits to see how the game played it out. In the actual season, it was 6-9 with a 4.54 ERA and a save. 78 games. In the replay, 3-5, 3.88 ERA and a save in 73 games. A few less innings, gave a couple more hits. Home runs about the same, walks about the same, and strikeouts pretty much the same. And over here, in real life, lefties hit 279 against him, where righties only hit 207. And in the replay, lefties got him for 321, and righties only got him for 244. So about a 70-point split on both sides. So that worked out pretty well, I thought. 1 home run versus lefties, 3 versus righties on the 4 there, whereas he didn't give up any home runs to lefties in real life. All 5 of them went to righties. So although he was tougher average-wise against righties in real life, he gave up the long ball to righties in real life a little bit more. All right, let's look at Matt Grace. He was there early in the season before he got released. He actually did better in the replay for me, which is why I pitched him 6 more games than he did in real life, even though the innings pitched is about the same. Hits are the same. Home runs, he did a little bit better. Walks about the same. Strikeouts roughly the same. But he was 3-0 with a 4.72 in the replay versus 1-2 with a 6.36 on the actual season. Next guy is Eric Fetty, and he has a tremendous card. He is tremendously tough against right-handers, so I wanted to see how the game checked that out. First, look at the average stat or the overall stats. 6-5 in the replay with a 4.91 ERA versus 4-2 with a 4.50. 23 games in the replay versus 21 in real life in the actual season. That's what the A means, actual season. I know in real life you tend to look at the R, but it's the actual season. Innings pitched pretty much identical. His hits are down. He gave up less hits. Home runs about the same. Walks about the same. Strikeouts roughly the same. Come over here to the replay for his splits. In real life, lefties hit him for 331, where righties only hit him for 218. And in the replay, lefties got him for 264, but he held righties to 215. So I thought that reflected it pretty well. And the splits, home runs against lefties versus righties, pretty much right in line. So again, inside pitch, I thought did a real good job of reflecting the splits for Eric Fetty. All right. And again, that's not to belabor it, but that's one where a payoff pitch might have trouble replicating that because of the way the card is done. The pitcher card does not have a split rating. But that's just a story for another day, I guess. All right, here's the one outlier in the whole group, and that was Tanner Rainey. Anybody that's watched this replay know that anytime I brought Tanner Rainey in, it was trouble. So that's why I pitched him 8 less innings than he did in real life, even though he pitched only 2 fewer games. He gave up 12 more hits than he did in real life, 2 more homers, walked 3 extra, and didn't strike out nearly as many. 2-3 and 391 on the actual season, but at 1-4 with a 7.36 on the replay. So he just stunk up the joint. And I guess you're always going to have that one outlier at some point. All right. Next up is Javi Guerra. And I pitched him a little bit more than I probably should have. 49 games to 40 in the actual season. But only pitched him 4 extra innings, 6 extra hits, 1 extra home run, 7 extra walks, 4 extra strikeouts, 3-3, 4.99 versus 3-1, 4.86, 1 save to 2 save. So again, I thought that did reasonably well. Joe Ross pitched a lot better in the replay than he did in real life. In the actual season, he was 4-4 with a 5.48, and the replay was 9-3, 4.64, which is why he got 11 extra innings. Despite the 11 extra innings, they only gave up 3 extra hits and 1 less home run. Only 1 extra walk, but it's 16 extra strikeouts. So he did significantly better in the replay than he did in real life. Austin Voth didn't pitch all that much, but he started a few games. and did much better for me in the replay. It was 5-0 with a 2.50 ERA versus 2-1 with a 3.30 in actual season. 15 and 3rd innings versus 43 and 2/3, 39 hits to 33. Less home runs, though, in more innings pitched. You gave up less home runs and less walks. Strikeouts about the same. So keeping the ball in the ballpark and not issuing free passes certainly lowered that ERA for Austin Voth. Jeremy Hellickson, he pitched early in the season and then was released, but he did make 9 starts, so I thought I'd post his numbers. He was about the same. In the replay, he was 0-1 with a 6.02, whereas in the actual season, he was 2-3 with a 6.23. Innings about the same. His hits, he did a lot better, giving up less hits in the replay, although it didn't reflect too much on the ERA. Home runs about the same, walks about the same, and strikeouts about the same. All right, Hunter Strickland came over later in the season, and 2-2 in the replay with a 6 ERA versus 2-0 with a 5.14. So in limited innings pitched, only 21 innings pitched, I think that's reasonable. 20 hits on both. 8 home runs. Did give up more of the long ball in the replay, which probably caused this to go up. Walks and strikeouts relatively the same. And let's see, Tony Sipp, another one of those lefty-righty guys, but it didn't really pitch enough, I don't think, to warrant a check on lefty-righty, so I just did the normal stats. And they were short of left-handed relievers, so I actually pitched him 7 more games than he did in real life and 5 extra innings, despite him not pitching as well. 6.41 in the replay versus 4.71 on the actual season, which is why his hits, home runs, walks. You did get more strikeouts, but when you pitch more innings, you're going to get that. So that's Tony Sipp. And then the last player to check is Fernando Rodney. Came over, I believe, from the A's mid-season. He was 0-3 of the 4.05 in real life with 2 saves. He was 0-0, 4.45 with 3 saves in the replay. Innings pitched about the same. Gave a few extra hits. Home runs, walks are identical. Strikeouts pretty much the same as well. So all in all, I think combining all the stats and checking over all the stats, I thought inside pitch did not embarrass itself, put it that way. I thought inside pitch did very well, representing and replicating the season and giving the realistic feel like you were managing a real team through a real season. One thing I noticed, strikeouts were a little bit high for certain batters, and I think a lot of that was just some bad D20 rolls. I was rolling a lot of low numbers on the D20s, but the strikeout pluses and whatnot on the pitchers were generating a lot of those strikeouts to the batters, and that's just one of the things that just happens when you roll low D20s. But I think if anything, maybe the strikeouts were a tiny bit high, but not that bad. I didn't think they were out of line whatsoever. The fun factor in inside pitch is obviously really good. They have all the players. If they don't have them printed when you buy the printed set, the extra players are free in a PDF. So you can't beat that. You get all the players. So even if you get a guy only pitched 1 inning, and you want to use him, he's there. So, and they rate him the best they can for a small sample size. But so no complaints there. Like I said, it's a fun factor. You get to go from the pitcher card to the hitter card. One thing about inside pitch that I don't understand how it works, because to me it shouldn't work, but for some reason it does, because I'm a statistical guy. I was a math major in college and minored in statistics and probabilities and all that kind of good stuff. So let's look at a card and I'll show you what I mean. And I'm comparing this to Stratomatic. That's kind of what I'm comparing it to. Let's look at, I don't know, let's go with, we'll just use Ed Charles's 1969 Mets card. How about we do that? Now, the game is based on a 6x6 grid, 2d6s, but there's 36 squares here, so the probability that you roll a 1-1 is the exact same probability you roll a 6-6. So why is an out in 1-1 but a hit in 6-6? The probability there is exactly the same. Whereas in Stratomatic, if a guy has a higher average, you're going to get some hits in the 7, 8, and 9 columns come up more often than the 2, 11, and 3, and 12 come up. Whereas this is generically a split on the 6. So, I mean, like I said, any of these 30, it's a 1 in 36 chance that any of these come up. They all have the same probability. So I don't understand. I guess it's, I'm not the game maker, so I don't really know. But it works. So I mean, I can't explain it, but it works. It shouldn't, but it works. Because you would think if a guy had like a lower average here, you would think they would weight his base hits into squares that show up less often than the other squares. But this is a 1 in 36 chance on everything, so I don't get it. And of course, the pitcher card is the same way. I mean, why put a strikeout in column 2, row 2, and a walk in column 6, row 5 when they both have the exact same probability of showing up? That's just my observation. Like I said, it works, so I'm not going to question it, because having played through a full season now with the Nationals, I am convinced that this game is realistic and it works. It keeps track. You get a realistic set of stats when you're done. And of course, if you ask anyone who plays the game, particularly RJL, he will tell you the fun factor makes it all the more better. The only other nitpick I had about the game was certain marginal players don't have left-right splits. And if a guy only had 50 at-bats, hey, I'm cool with that. You don't need left-right splits for that. But in my examples I've shown before, if a guy has 350 at-bats but only happen to have 40 against lefties and 310 against righties, he should be split. He should be carded for the split. He should be penalized for having to face lefty pitching, because obviously the manager knew he couldn't hit lefties, which is why he only had the 40 at-bats to begin with. But I'm not going to beat the dead horse. I'm just giving you my overview. That is a minor nitpick, and the little bit high on the strikeouts is the other minor. Both our nitpicks are minor. So I will say that the card quality is really good. I love the colors. The charts have gotten a lot better since he came out with the new charts. The base running and everything, and the fielding and all that kind of stuff seems to flow pretty well. There is a slight learning curve when you first start the game, but once you get into it, I think now with the new charts, the learning curve will be smaller than what it was when I started, where it was kind of confusing. But anyway, that's just, I've rambled enough for about a half hour. I didn't plan to go this long, but anyway, that's my take, to use a Jim Rome phrase. That's my take on the game. I thought the stats were, in all, were very realistic, and Inside Pitch replicated the 2019 Nationals very well, in my opinion. Some of the quirks could be just my bad managing. Who knows? There were a couple outliers, but all in all, when you add the fun factor and the realism and the component quality and the fact you get all the players, I just think it's a win-win, and I would give it as close to an A+ as I could. So Stratomatic is still my favorite game, just because that was what I started with, and I've always have a fond, kind of your first love is like your fondness, I guess. So Inside Pitch is a strong number 2 in my world of board games, board baseball games. Along, there's other games, Payoff Pitch, obviously. There's APA, there's Status Pro, and you've got Pine Tar, and there's probably some games I'm forgetting about. History Maker is a totally separate, it's not even the same genre. It's more of a fantasy game where you're not really doing hardcore stats. It is based on statistics, but it's not as hardcore as some of the other ones, so that's kind of apples and oranges. But out of all these games, I would say Inside Pitch for me is a strong number 2 behind Stratomatic, just on the fun factor and the component quality and the fact that you get all the players, and the game flows pretty well now with the new charts. So that's my take. I give it a 2 thumbs up. If you can see it, 2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs up for Inside Pitch. I thoroughly enjoyed the project. I'm going to be moving on to doing something else. I'm not sure what yet. I did buy the new Payoff Pitch components, so I would like to do something with Payoff Pitch, but maybe not a project per se. Might just do some random games here and there. We'll have to wait and see. I really want to get back to Stratomatic as well, because I miss playing Stratomatic. Although I did that for the 82 replay, I really want to do something else with that. Out of the ordinary compared to what I usually do with Stratomatic. So I want to get into that as well. Working more, so my playing time is a little bit down than what it used to be when I wasn't working, so we'll see how it plays out. But I did want to put a bow on this Inside Pitch 2019 Nationals replay and give everybody my opinion on the game and show the stats. And hopefully if you're playing Inside Pitch already, you realize what a great game it is. If you're on the fence about trying it, I certainly would encourage you to do so. PDF is very reasonable if you just want to try it, just to get 2 sample teams and see if you like it. And you don't have to make a big commitment of paying, $60 or whatever for a season. So that's going to do it from here. Of course, RJL is in the middle of his, or not in the middle, near the end of his 1981 season play along with Inside Pitch. So if you like Inside Pitch or you want to learn more about Inside Pitch, check him out, RJL518. And he's about the only one I know of right now that's doing Inside Pitch on the computer. So until next time, enjoy playing whatever game you choose to play, however you choose to play it, and I'll see you all down the road.